Here's your host, Alex Garrett.
Welcome inside to Alex Garrett Podcasting as we see the aftermath of that devastating Christmas Day car bombing in downtown Nashville, as we see COVID vaccines coming across to more people and more citizens. There's got to be hope on the horizon, right? And we're going to get into this whole theory that my next guest has about the Kentucky Derby and the presidential election. But I first want to talk to Margaret Dulaney. She's actually playwright and someone who moved from New York City to Pennsylvania and wrote about all of this in her new memoir, The Parables of Sunlight. And by the way, my stepdad, Victor Furman, had this great lady on his podcast, Destination Unlimited, Margaret Dulaney. Margaret, I know you got a new book out, and I know you have this theory about the horse racing and the Kentucky Derby. Oh my gosh, so many things to start out. But first of all, tell us a little about you and a little bit about Listenwell, because I'm very fascinated about your story from New York to Pennsylvania.
Okay. Well, I did move to New York to pursue the theater. I was trained in the theater and then acted for a while, then started writing plays. And in about 94, I thought, I'm not satisfied. I've always wanted to live in the country. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, outside of the city. And I thought, I want to get back. And my husband was also in the performing arts. He is a musician. And we decided to move to Bucks County, Pennsylvania. He converted our old barn into a recording studio and did more producing. And he produced with, he started Palmetto Jazz, which has a lot of great jazz artists on the album, and they would come out and record and stay with us, and it was a fun life. But then I thought, I want to get back to my writing, and so I started writing essays that are faith, that's not really the right word, it's sort of spiritually, ethically based, and it's and they were, I was getting a great pile of them in my office. I would occasionally send them out. But then I thought, one day I was in my backyard and I was staring at the barn, and I thought, hey, I have a recording studio in my backyard. Why don't I record these essays? They're only about 10 minutes, and offer them on a website. And so I started listenwell.org. And ever since, I've been just so happy with it. It's been 11 years. My audience continues to grow organically, friend to friend, and that's a lovely thing. I hear from people. I love hearing from people. And then I have 2 books that have grown up.
And Margaret, one of the books that is out now is The Parables of Sunlight, and we'll get to that in a minute. It's a memoir about your journey. But when you say barn, and we just celebrated Christmas, this is Christmas weekend, I've got to say, do you think God's hands were in you and your husband's will to turn that barn into a studio? I mean, it just feels like an interesting connection there.
I feel so led to do this, and even all the training I did as an actor has made it possible for me to be a spoken word artist, if you want to call me that. Just being able to speak the words comfortably, it took a lot. It does take training, even though it seems with most people who read their own stuff, it can seem effortless, but it takes a lot of effort. And I've definitely, it took me a while to get used to it. It's a very strange thing, but yes, I just felt led all along, and that the writing of plays was more just about writing in general. And now my nonfiction is so satisfying to me. I feel when I look back that I've been led all along. So you're right.
Very cool. Acting versus voice acting. Do you have any advice for those out there that do want to maybe still keep alive the radio dramas or do the voice acting? I have to imagine acting versus voice acting, there is a difference there.
I so wish they would get back to radio drama. And I'm not quite in that generation. I'm a little younger, but I know that people a little older than I who used to sit around the radio and listen to stories just miss it terribly. It's not a podcast. It's a very different sort of thing, isn't it? It's radio drama. And yes, I wish someone would start a whole station of it.
But you would say your work as a voice actor is not toward that. It's more of a non-fictional basis that you record with.
These are 10-minute sort of thought pieces written that just once a month I post one 10-minute essay every month recorded. My husband puts a little music around it. And and even that, it's hard to carve out 10 minutes a month. But it would be the whole idea of radio drama. Maybe I'll go into that eventually. Maybe that's where I'm going.
I don't know if you feel the same, but whenever I podcast, I feel like a load is off my shoulders. Like I've got my brain out there and my thoughts out there. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like what you're doing is cathartic? In addition to helping people, it's got to feel somewhat catharsis, right, for you? Yes, and writing is cathartic for me. But absolutely, you need that. You need that third step, I suppose, the thinking and then the writing, or in your case, just the thinking and the reaching out, and then finally the audience. And that's what it's all about, is connecting with people. Yes, it's cathartic. I've got to ask: are there animals on your farm? Do they come to the barn? Are they sitting with you as you? Because I know you do have animals on the farm. So do they sit with you as you record? Yeah. So my book is about a horse on a farm around the corner, which we have a little sort of farmette and then a farm around the corner, which we had for 20 years. We're about to sell it. But, my home is filled with animals, which is wonderful. Wonderful gift. And that's something that you can do in the country it's tough to do in the city. It's tough to have a dog in the city, even though it's a joy. It's just city dog owners work so hard. That's so true. They do, to avoid fines, firstly, and then to make sure that everything's cleaned up. It is work, and of course the dog runs are great. When you were in the city, where did you guys live, and did you have a dog here, and where did you guys take your animals when you were in New York? We had a dog in the village, in the West Village, and we went to the Washington Square Dog Run for the first year, and then that dog convinced us to move out of the city. Why don't you just make the leap to the country? And that's what we did. That's pretty cool. How did your dog convince you to make the leap? Now I'm curious. I think she was so full of energy and so tough to wear out. And puppies are in general, but she's a lab, and woof. And so, we just thought, let's get back to my roots and sort of my husband's. He's from Tennessee. He was more in the country than the city. So it felt right. But you were raised in Manhattan? No. Yes, I was, but I still feel like I love the outer borough, the sort of suburban feel. There's just something about escaping the hustle and bustle to Queens that I really cherish and I love. But now that you're in Pennsylvania, you've been there for a while now, during this pandemic, you see what's happened to the city. What's your thoughts on New York? I mean, is it heartbreaking? Is it relieving you're not here? What goes through your feelings as you see what's going on during this pandemic in the city? And to actors, as you are a playwright.
I know, and we have a lot of friends in the performing arts that are just, everything is dead still. It's more heartbreaking than anything. It just, the beginning of the pandemic, when it was so hard on New York, I have a very, my closest friend lives there. And so we still talk every day. It just breaks my heart, but I know it's better now, and I totally understand why she stuck it out there. That it's there is a spirit in New York and it came out after 9/11, and it's come out now. It's just they know how to love one another through these hard times. Everybody thinks of New York as being full of a bunch of cranky people. It's not at all true.
It's not. I mean, people hold the door for you here in New York. You know what I mean? We have that kind of kindness here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. I know that.
Well, your role, obviously, with Listenwell.org probably boosted people's energy during this pandemic. Did you find your voice recordings change from from last year to this year, and the tone sort of more of a hopeful tone, or how did you shift your messaging as you saw the pandemic unfold? And I'm sure you got listenership out of this, in a way, because people wanted hope and they were looking for hope, and I'm sure they came to Listenwell for hope.
Yeah, I think I've been steadily hopeful because I just am in general. I do believe in the progress of mankind and the progress of life on Earth. I know it's creepy slow, but I think we are always becoming slightly more enlightened. And maybe we will come to a time when there's a tipping point and it will start to be an avalanche. I'm not sure. I think I'm more into the progress of each individual soul than the masses, because we don't change by masses. We change by individuals. And this pandemic will mean something very different to every single person. But the fact that it's happening to all of us is profound. And I think a profound chance to really take a look at our lives and what we want to take out of this time. Because any pause, anytime you get sick or you are forced to pause, is terribly significant, I think.
Margaret,
anyway,
it's not lost on me either that we are all on this even playing field. Really, for the first time in my lifetime, I don't ever remember everybody kind of just grounded. And I think God has grounded, maybe you can agree or not, that God's grounded us to fight this virus together, has he not?
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. Yes. It's a profound time. And also the fact that we are in the States going through it with such poor guidance, from our leaders, so that now that we have to depend on one another in ways, also that I don't think we can point the finger at anybody because it's a pandemic, which is very nice because it's happening globally. But it's certainly been exacerbated and created more anxiety in the States because of the way it's been handled. But that allows us opportunities to have heroes and to reach out to each other.
And I always think that these healthcare heroes have been heroes beyond the pandemic. It's just, we need our nursing and doctors, every year. It's just they've been highlighted more this year, rightfully so. It's just, they're there always. And I think it's an important reminder to tell people that. Now, Parables of Sunlight, you have this memoir out. How can people find uplift in this book through the pandemic? And is it any, is it different than the voice work that you do? What's the differences? What's the similarities between your writing and your voice work?
I think it's a very the book revolves around some of the themes that I study on my listenwell.org site, but it just takes it a few steps further. I'd say that theme is hope and perseverance, and that hope is, it's nothing if you don't stand behind it and move with it. You know, hope is nothing without perseverance, and good things take time. And this is the story revolves around my horse who was very badly injured, and and it was a life and death struggle for months and months. I learned so much from it, from having to fight for her life. So it's a struggle, and finally hope prevails, and she does come back to us. But it's hopefully the book is a journey that will make the reader think about perseverance and fighting for what they believe in, and etc.
I will say horses are unique animals, and I mean, it's just the loving care you have. Talk about that. I mean, you said you're from Louisville, but obviously beyond that, you've gained a love for horses, probably because of the environment. But is there more to that? Like, what got you hooked on horses? Was it just because you were in Louisville, or was there more to it?
My mother, when she got divorced, I think in order to entertain us, got us some old farm horses in Kentucky, which my brother and sister and I started out riding, and I was the only one that continued because I just loved them. And then I didn't ride for years and years until we bought this farm around the corner, and this horse just landed on the farm and sort of in my lap. And I took her on reluctantly because a horse can live to be 40. And I wouldn't want to take on an animal if I wasn't going to see that animal through their life. So it was just this amazing journey of responsibility and love. And yes, you're right. Horses it's hard to explain how powerful they are and how powerfully you can love a horse. I heard of a woman who had a lot of animals, dogs, cats, and when her horse died, it nearly flattened her, whereas she'd been able to deal with the other ones leaving her. And I wondered at that and thought, oh gosh, really, a horse? But now I get it. I don't know what it is. They're magnificent and profoundly. What is the word? Well, they get into your heart like nothing else.
Well, and it's the way they look at you, right? So if a horse looks at you a certain way, you just know they are looking inside. Well, I am around. Speaking of the Derby, I had known the trainer of Big Brown, which I know is featured in this theory. I believe it was Rick Dutra. You know, I've known him. I know Pletcher. I know Zito through Belmont Park. And
good.
And one thing I can never understand is why these guys are always yelling at the horses, or even I've seen them bang on the windows. The horses are freaked out. Like, people don't understand. These are gentle creatures. They may run like lightning, but they are really gentle. And I think that message needs to come through as well.
Oh, yeah. I stress that in my book because my horse was really, there's a wonderful horse trainer called Buck Buchanan, and he says you can scare a horse for life. And my horse is scared for life. She is so anxious and nervous all the time. And it just won't go away. I mean, even as much as we, creep and crawl around her and never raise an arm or never make a loud noise. She just is rattled from the track. And, that's something that I hope eventually will go away in our culture, horse racing.
Well, it is. It's a debate. I actually saw protesters out at the track last year. I know in my heart that the horses want to run, but I also see that side of it as well. That side of, let them run naturally then.
Yeah. But we're all on planet Earth, and and there's things that aren't perfect. So, and there's a lot of love between trainers and horses and jockeys.
And jockeys, yep. I see that too.
Definitely.
I see that too. So so you kind of see both sides of this, and obviously, you see it to the point where you still follow the races, even if you hope one day it may not. You still follow them. So let's get into this.
Yeah.
2012 Big Brown. 2012 Big Brown. Just give us your theory. What do you think is the relation between the Kentucky Derby and the year's presidential election?
All right. So I'm going to give you the sort of brief version of what got me into it. I was actually into trying to predict the outcome of the November election by the name of the horse that won the Derby, even before Big Brown won the Derby the year that Obama won the election. The Derby is run in May. And then, as you know, the Belmont and the Preakness are after that. And so in 2008 was Big Brown when Obama won. When he won his second term in 2012, the horse's name was I'll Have Another term. But I'll Have Another. In 2015, as our current president was on the rise, the name of the horse that won in 2015 was American Pharaoh.
And I want to stop you right there. That is the first horse in about 30 plus years that won the Triple Crown.
Yes. Interesting. Okay. And then in 2016, there was a horse in the field named Exaggerator. And we all know who that is. And I was very relieved to see him only place in the Derby. But he went on to win the next two races of the Triple Crown, which, relates to Hillary winning, the popular vote and Trump winning the election. And so in 2018, when the Democrats took back the Congress, the horse's name was Justify. I felt we were justified there. In 2019, the horse that actually crossed, do you remember the last year's race in 2019? The horse that finished first was Maximum Security.
Yes. Yep.
But he was taken down because his jockey cheated. And then the horse that ended up winning the race was Country Home. Then 2020 comes along, and the Derby's all out of whack. They can't run it in May, but they run. Did they run the Preakness first? Wait, I wrote this.
Well,
down.
they did the Belmont, and then they did the Kentucky, and then the final one, I believe, was the Preakness.
Was the Preakness. Right, you're right. Okay. So the horse that won the Belmont was Tis the Law, which will come into play, in the fall. And then the winner of the Derby, which was run in, I think it was September, right, was Authentic. And I believe that absolutely pointed to Biden winning. He is Authentic.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. By the way, Tis the Law, Barclay Tag, and New York bred. So that want to shout out New York there for that one.
Good. So then finally, the third was Preakness, and the horse that won the race was actually a filly. It's kind of immaterial what her name was. Swiss Skydiver was her name, but she was one of the rare fillies to run in any of these races. But then the second one was authentic. The sort of, I think, of Joe backing up Kamala. And so looking back at 2019 with the effort on the jockey to cheat to win the Derby was stopped, and the judges, elected not to let the horse win, and just as the judges across the country have elected not to listen to this voter fraud nonsense.
Well, it is. I had made that point that, some may say, well, these judges are scared. I think they really are upholding the law of the land by not, looking into this. It's just, it's common sense to think that rather than think they're, being paid or bribed. I can't see that.
No. And all of them? No. It's been very satisfying just seeing that play out. There's still, 'tis the law. There's still law that rules.
Right, and Supreme Court also a big knockdown there, if you think about it. Yeah. Now, if you did not have the experience with your horse, would you have thought about this or what?
Yeah, I think I would have, because I was even back in the Bush years trying to figure out whether Kerry was going to win against, Bush for a second term. And I remember that horse's name was Smarty Jones. And I thought, can I really twist this into meaning something? But then it wasn't until Big Brown came around, to win that for and then point to Obama. But I thought, okay, now the Kentucky Derby theory is really coming, sort of sharpening and getting more exciting for me. And now I have a lot of friends who follow it.
Well, let me ask you this, because when I think of that, when I think of all of this and the Kentucky Derby, we all remember the heartthrob that was Barbaro. We remember the story.
Yeah.
Edgar Prado, an amazing jockey, by the way. Great man, too, if you had a chance to meet him. But Barbaro himself really captured the whole country. Was that radar on for what that meant? Like, what did you have any feelings about that? Like, oh, this is what it means for the country. Was there any thought you put to that?
Oh, you know what? I wasn't savvy enough then. Do you remember what year that was?
It was 2006, and we were about midterm of the next midway of Bush's second term, where the war was really beating us down a little bit, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And then a year later came the recession. It's kind of interesting now that you think of it. But yeah, that Barbaro story captured the whole nation for his lifetime.
And the Barbaro story was something that I followed even more after my horse was kicked and so badly injured. Because I'm in Barbaro territory, the allopathic vet that really wanted to put my horse down said, well, you might consider surgery. And actually, he talked to the Barbaro surgeon. Of course, Barbaro ended up dying. But that surgeon actually said, no, I wouldn't operate on that horse. It will probably kill her. And operations for horses are just awful. They don't understand. They try to stand up right away. They can often break the leg again. It's just the chances of them actually pulling through a surgery that major is just very slight. And I really related to the Barbaro woman, the woman, the wife, and I think her name was Margaret. Anyway, she was, with that horse every day. She was so involved and so heartbroken when he died. But I think she was going through a lot of the same thoughts that I was going through, because I do not like to keep an animal on the earth that is suffering. I'm all for helping them into the next world. I believe in the next world. I believe I will see them again. And so it's not that great a hardship for me to see an animal cross over, because I just believe they're better off. And I think, the Barbaro couple had to come to that conclusion. Well, a while.
1,000%. And by the way, I agree with you that when our dog Kismet, I don't know if my stepdad talked about this, but when our dog Kismet was like on her last legs breathing, we knew. And it was, I honestly cried for 5 minutes. Then I just knew, she's not suffering anymore. And I was more grateful for that than seeing her. I was more grateful that she was able to cross over peacefully than anything else. That was what I was really, that day, 3 years ago. 3 years ago already. That's time's flying.
Yeah. It's your final gift to them.
Yes. I think for any horse racing, a fan or whatever you want to say, it is traumatizing still to see them bring out the tent when they have to get a horse that's down on the track. I mean, have you seen that in person? What are your feelings whenever you do see that, if you do?
I have seen it, yeah. And I've also, when I'm at the track, of course it makes me think, is this right? And, it's been happening in bigger arenas, hasn't it? Like bigger races.
Santa Anita had at least 230 or more. Like, it was bad last year.
Yes. Isn't that interesting? And I think it's a way of saying, look at this. Is this ethical? And also there are many horses that there are many thoroughbreds that are adopted by people who love them the rest of their life. So that's a good part of the story. But yeah, those tents going up. I've also walked quite a few horses on our farm to their last moments when a vet comes to put them down. It's always a very peaceful scene, but often the owners can't be there, and I usually volunteer because I feel like it's the right thing to do, and I can be there.
When you talk about horse owners and horse trainers, there is this kind of feeling, they're heartless, look at them running that. But I really don't think they're heartless. What do you think? Would you agree that they have a heart, and that should be explained too, mm-hmm. I think?
I do too. I just met a jockey a couple of weeks ago, and I liked him so much. And he loves horses, loves them. And I thought, there's so many sides to this issue. I don't know the answer. There's probably a lot of ways, like racing a horse too young when their bones aren't even formed. There's a lot of that could be changed to make it a kinder atmosphere and a quieter. They could do a lot to make it more ethical.
Well, I feel like we've gone down the horse racing path, and I don't want to lose the other audience that may not be horse racing enthusiasts. So how does this book encompass for everybody to come to the table and read Parables in the Sunshine?
Parables of Sunlight. I think the universal theme of hope and perseverance, the courage that it takes to to move toward a goal that could be 30 years in coming to fruition. My own writing really didn't start to blossom for about 21 years, which, had someone said that to me when I picked up the first pencil, I think I wouldn't have picked it up. But people do amazing things, and it usually takes a lot of courage. But we are courageous.
We are, and as my dad pointed out, the only thing we know how to do is move forward. We can't sit back and be locked down. We have to be naturally moving forward, and I applaud those that are able to do it safely. That's all I'm asking for, and I'm sure you are too, that people do move around but do it safely.
Yeah.
One other thought, as we talk about hope and, restoring positivity and whatnot, we really are down to the last week in 2020. Is it wrong to hold out hope for the rest of 2020? Is that kind of far-fetched, or is there still some here?
Oh, I think there is. Wasn't it Mr. Rogers, whose mother used to say whenever a tragedy came up on the television or whatever, and young Mr. Rogers was upset, and she would say, "Look for the heroes." So we have so many examples of that. We have to stop. I think it is up to us to stop, that we should drive the media, that the consumer should drive the media by not being so fascinated with the dark side, to be more taken with the light.
I'm going to pull that soundbite and tag every news network out there, because I think, it's one person for a podcast to say, but when you have guests saying that, and, it's true, we need to have the media do that. So I love that line.
Yeah, I have friends who say, "Oh, we'll never be rid of him. Oh, we'll never not," And I think, well, yes, we will, but it's like the song, "Let there be peace on earth, but let it begin with me." All right, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to follow that storyline anymore. And then if we could reach a tipping point, and we won't have to follow it.
And one of the things that I'm hoping for, and I think you might be too, is getting rid of apathy and getting involved, meaning we don't just look at the TV, we do something to fix it in our own neighborhoods. As you say, leadership all over is a little messed up, so it's up to us.
Yes. Oh, yes. And I think many of us have been awakened in the past 4 years. There's a great groundswell of energy, and those who really want to make a difference. I think we're on a great footing right now.
This may sound like a wild question, but for those who are in acting and for those who may be still pursuing the dream, even if it's in hiatus right now, can they pull your writings, your play writings from Listenwell.com? Sorry about that, but yeah.
I have 2 published plays. And you can go to Amazon and look up Margaret Dulaney. It's a Dulaney. So, you can look at those 2 plays.
Anything for reading during this time, and I'm sure your plays are just as encouraging as these books. That's listenwell.org. Margaret Dulaney, this has been a real pleasure. And as your journey continues, please come back and let us know what's next on the farm, as they say, or however you want to say
it. That's nice. Yes, I will. I love talking to you, Alex.
I love talking to you. This was great. And thanks again to my stepdad, Victor Furman, who was at Destination Unlimited, for linking us up. I'm Alex Garrett, and we're always adapting. Come adapt with us each and every day. Take care. Thank you so much.